Actually, this is our first event in person, so we're so excited that we could do this tonight. But moving forward, I just wanted to introduce you to Karen Latimer, and we're so happy she could be here. She was supposed to be here last year, coincidentally, the same month, talking about parenting, and we're still discussing parenting and COVID and all the other things. So thank you, Karen, for coming.
Oh, it's my pleasure. Just saying to Melissa, I haven't been here in years, and it's really like being back at home. I had 4 of my children went to Westside. It's a wonderful place. Read my article, right, Melissa? That's and we have such a small group here, but I am so grateful that you guys all came. I kind of feel like I want to sit in a circle and just kind of tell our woes and our stories from the whole year, but instead I'm going to do the presentation because I think there are people watching at home, and welcome to all of you as well. Let's raise happier parents. I know a lot of parenting talks are about what you do for your kids, and that's great, it's wonderful, and it's important, but I've learned throughout all these years as a mom that if you work on being a happier mom, I only have moms in the room, a happier mom, then your children will be happier. If you work on being less stressed as a mom, your children will be less stressed. It trickles down, the trickle effect is amazing. And the benefit is that you also are less stressed and happier. So, when I say let's, I mean this has to happen as a community, right? We kind of like need a movement of being happier moms, right? We have to kind of get out of this, it's so hard, I'm worried all the time kind of mentality. And you guys feel like you were probably raised already, you're all rose, whatever the past tense is, but we're all evolving. Life is a journey. We're always changing. We're always evolving. Parenting is like this beautiful time that you can actually explore who you want to be, and for your children, who you want to be for yourself. So we're still getting raised, maybe by our children this time. Happier, I'm going to talk about in a second. Parents is self-explanatory. I added even during a pandemic because I promise you kind of can still be happy during a pandemic. I know it's much more challenging, but there's hope. We're all here together. The sun was shining today. I'm super grateful. We're going to get through it. So I was teasing all the women who are here because I said I'm going to call on you. There's not going to be a lot of calling on, but happy is one of those words. It's a great word to use because everyone kind of gets what you mean, but it's feeling or showing pleasure or contentment in a moment. Somebody gives me a gift, I'm happy. My kid gets good grade, I'm happy in a moment. But when we say we want to be a happier parent, what do we really mean? I have a good friend. She's got 5 kids as well. Her oldest is the same age as my youngest. So she's like my young mom friend. And she said to me on the phone, she just sounded so good. She was like, I went to the museum today. The museum was open. She got her little guy who's so into dinosaurs to the Museum of Natural History. And she was just thrilled about this moment, And I was like, oh, Amy, you're so she, puts me to shame. She's so good. She's always doing something. She always makes me feel bad. But I was like, I love that you're so happy about it. And she said, for the past year, I have not been able to be the mom I want to be. For the past year, I have been virtual learning. I'm wearing so many hats. I'm trying to do so many things, and I just can't be who I want to be. So I'm going to throw it out to you guys, and I don't want to put anyone on the spot, but just shout them out. When you say happy parent, what do you think of? Maybe there are other adjectives that are better descriptors of this happy. We want our kids to be happy. We want to be happy. But what do we really mean? Fulfilled. Engaged and involved. Thank you, yes. Joyful? Yeah, joyful. And joyful is such a better adjective than happy, because joyful actually connotes a overall sort of feeling in your whole life. You live a joyful life. Joy is more of an experience, whereas happy is more of a fleeting kind of a feeling or an emotion. Anything else? Peaceful. Wouldn't that be nice? Yeah. Peaceful sounds great. And you can find peace. There's peace, for sure. Anything? Balanced. Yeah, balanced. Because often we feel like we're teetering on the edge, and this past year has been a year where we were already kind of teetering, and then we just got that little push, right? And it's we're all off center, for sure. So I often hear confident. I think parenting confidently is a real challenge, to feel good about what you're doing, to not second guess everything you do. So this is a little hokey, and I'm sorry to do this to you if any of you hate this kind of a thing. And I know at home it's probably hard because you're probably surrounded by your little kids, or maybe you found a moment away. I hope you did. But if you'll bear with me, I just want to do a couple little centering exercise. So I want you to think about the things that were thrown out or what you want for yourself, and just pick one of them, one of the things we said. whether it was peaceful or confident or joyful, whatever you want to feel as a mother, just hold on to that for a second. Now I want you to pick one of your children. I don't know how many kids you all have, but I know you all have at least one. So just pick one of them. Focus on that child for a moment, what you are feeling with them, what he or she is experiencing, and think of one thing you want for them. Just one thing, one word. It could be a phrase, but like something simple, right? Not a litany, because we all want a million things for our kids. You just have to pick one. And I just want you to kind of get a comfortable seat and sit, sit back, relax. Take a big deep breath in, take a big deep breath out. For right now, I know there are a million other places you guys could be. There's a million other things you guys at home could be watching. Lots of them probably kid shows. But you're here, and we're here together for the next hour, so let's center ourselves. And I don't know if anyone is familiar with box breathing, but box breathing is breathing in for a count of 4. So if you picture a box, breathing in for a count of 4, holding it for a count of 4, breathing out for a count of 4, holding the exhale for a count of 4. And what I'm going to ask you to do is just go along with me. Inhale, 1, 2, 3, 4. Hold it, 1, 2, 3, 4. And you can close your eyes if you're comfortable with that. Exhale, hold, 1, 2, 3, 4. On your next inhale, I want you to think of the thing you wanted for yourself, just that one thing you wanted for yourself as a mom. And inhale it, 1, 2, 3, 4. Hold on to it. You deserve it. You should have it. And now exhale out that thing you want for that one child, picturing his or her beautiful little face. And hold onto that vision for that child. Inhale what you'd like for yourself. Hold it in your heart. Exhale what you want for your child. And hold onto that vision for that child. And I'm just going to be quiet, not long, 30 seconds. I'm just going to let you sit with that for a moment, if you can, inhaling and exhaling what you want and what you want for your child. Okay, one last deep breath in, sending some gratitude for all that we have managed to hold on to this past year, exhaling out as many of the worries and concerns that you can, opening your eyes when you feel comfortable. And I just invite you throughout this time, if your mind starts to wander, let it wander, whatever. You don't have to focus on me the whole time, but try to come back to that, right? That's why we're all here. Like, that's what we care about, right? We always say we care more about what we want for our child, but I hope you got the feeling like if I could get what I want for me, gosh, I could give it back to my child. And it's a whole process. And if you find yourselves in a moment of just, and you will, craziness, and that child is driving you nuts, or you're so worried or so stressed or so fearful, this year is such a year of fear, it's really nice to come back to that, just to pick that one word, because it just reminds us that everything that you do for your child comes from a place of love. And comes from a good place. So you can't really be doing anything wrong when your intention is so good. So I'm assuming everybody here has little kids. I now have big kids. I'm going to just tell you quickly, these are all the things. I'm not going to even read them. I'm a family physician. I do wellness coaching. I was a health and parenting expert at AOL. I contributed to ABC. I got to hug Michael Strahan on Good Morning America. That was like the highlight of my life. He's adorable. I have an Audible original coming out that is touching upon some of the things that I'm talking about here. It's coming out in May, right around Mother's Day. I'm all these things. I'm wife, sister, daughter, friend, just like you guys. You are a million things. But really, this is who I am. So this is me at my most joyful, with my favorite people in the world, just living our life and embracing the fact that above all else, I'm a mom. You know, I read Lean In, but I read it way too late. So I am like a mom first and all of these other things second, and I'm okay with that because they are kind of great. So that's when they were little, and you guys have heard this before, right? Little kids, little problems, big kids, big problems, right? Of course, like little kids you can control, big kids you can't control. And I'm here to tell you that I hate that phrase more than almost any other phrase, maybe abundance of caution is like up on my list these days, but more than any other phrase, I hate that phrase because it is just simply not true. I remember what it was like to have little kids. It's hard to have little kids. You're worried all the time. There's risks everywhere, choking hazards. They were like one of my kids was like a total flight risk. She would just disappear. Your back is breaking. You like spit up on your shoulder. You're sleepless nights. You're exhausted. You're constantly worried, like, who are they going to be and what do I need to give to them to get them to be who they want to be? It is exhausting to have little kids. I promise you, it gets easier. I have 3 teenage girls. It gets easier. And when you put the work in now, and I hate to even call it work, when you put the mindfulness in now, when you parent mindfully and you parent with intention now, you will like reap the benefits later on. My daughter Madeline was like, I don't know, 2 years old or something. And I don't know, for some reason, like, and what's important to you is not necessarily what's important to me, and what's important to me doesn't have to be important to you. So it was important to Larry and I that Maddie was like very polite. Like we had this thing, we just wanted to like raise this nice, polite kid. So it was always like, say thank you, say please, do, we were constantly on her. And my mother and his father, both of whom were kind of strict, were like, leave her alone. She doesn't have to say thank you all the time. She doesn't. And we were like, no, it's important to us. We want her to. She's such like a grateful person. They all are. It was important to us for all of the kids. And they all, now, I've like, it's been years since I had to tell one of my kids, like, say thank you for that. But more than that, we instilled gratitude in them, right? So we did what we wanted them to do to be like healthy members of a community, like show respect and be polite. But at the same time, we know that grateful people are happier people. So it works. So if you put it time in now, you're not only doing it so that that kid in this moment is like well-liked by his or her teacher, or the waitress will say to you, you have the nicest kid. Like all of that is wonderful. But know that it's for the long haul that you do these things and feel confident in doing them because you know that you're setting your child up for success. When you are a grateful person and you are a happier person, you're more, you're probably like even a more well-liked person. Like it all kind of fits together, right? It matters. So these are my kids now. So they're perfect. There's no problems there at all. That is my Christmas card this year because I really did think that pretty much summed up the year that we had. I think Maddie actually does know how to shotgun a White Claw. The rest of it, I swear, nobody. I think she actually shotgunned that when it was over. But she's 19, so, COVID, we kind of lowered the drinking age in our house a little bit. But this is them, and they're great. They're good kids, whatever. Their problems, all kids have their problems, but they're good. Now, this is what I felt like when I had little kids. And I was frazzled and crazed, and I just felt like I wanted the days to end, but at the same time, people kept telling me, like, oh, you got to hold on to this. So I had this feeling like I had to hold on to every moment, and then I had, like, I just wanted to go to sleep. I wanted them to go to sleep. I just wanted that glass of wine at the end of the night. And I like this because the doctor's like, I'm so sorry. You have the disease we call children, and this is why you look and feel like a mess. But I have 2 takeaways. The first is what I said before. I swear to you, it gets easier. So if you are having an easy time, that's good news. It's going to get better. If you're having a difficult time, I promise you it will get easier if you let it get easier. If you don't buy into this whole crazy culture we have now that the more stressed out mom you are, the better mom you are. Don't buy in, it will get easier. Because they start taking care of themselves. You don't have to travel with diapers anymore. You don't have to, they're independent. You don't worry that they're going to get hit by a car. You raise them and then you trust them, and that's how it goes. That's takeaway 1. Takeaway 2 is your kid's going to be fine. I know the statistics, I know them well, and yes, there are going to be hiccups and there are going to be things along the way, but statistically speaking, your kids are going to be fine. I'm not saying they're going to be rocket scientists or they're going to fulfill all the hopes and dreams that you want for them. But they're going to be fine, and if they're not, it's not your fault. You're all doing the best you can. I'm doing the best I can. But statistically, they will be fine. They will grow. They might not go to Harvard. They're going to grow up. They're going to get into schools if they want to, and they're going to become adults, and they'll find meaningful ways in their life, and they're going to be fine. So rest on that. So this is the parenting years. I couldn't put like all pictures or whatever. So here's me in 2001, still with like baby fat on my cheeks, like so happy, so naive. I had this big fat baby, 36 hours of labor later. And then I don't even know what happened because the next thing, there's the 5 of them in the hospital room with us. And here's now. So there's that little baby, and there she is. That's her in college. She's bigger than me. She's stronger than me. She's like smarter than me. And she's got other problems, but she's pretty cool. And they're Charlie and Shane, they're those little babies. That's where they are now. So here's me now. And then there's my empty nest. So the line keeps going up. So you might think I'm going to say to you, it goes so fast. It doesn't go so fast. It goes at the speed it goes. We only think it goes fast because in retrospect, everything's seen better. When you look back, when I'm here, I think about Charlie and Shane singing their little, Christmas pageant, the best day of the year, singing their little blue blazers, and it's perfect. And I don't remember all the ridiculous nonsense. I don't remember the actual poop fight they had when they were in their crib, in that moment. You look back fondly. And so it does not go fast. That's me. I was young. 27 years later, before they all get out of my house, I'm going to be old. It's a long time. And no matter how many kids you have, you're doing at least 18. It's at least 18 years. It's a lot of your life. You hope your life is long, and it's still a lot of your life. So I've done things that I've been called a parenting expert, and that's nice because it kind of just makes it sound like I know what I'm talking about. And to a certain degree, I think I do. I have experience, and I'm mindful about it, and I'm a physician and all of that. So, but I'm not a parenting expert because I kind of hate that term. I can only try and never get there to be an expert at parenting my own children. You guys are trying to get there to be the expert at parenting your children. Every child is so different. To say that there is a parenting expert is to say that there's one right way to do this. There is not one right way to do this. And that's part of what has us all stressed and depressed and anxious, because if there's a right way to do it, then maybe I'm doing it wrong. And I'm telling you that there's 5 of them. I parent them all differently. I watch people. I coach people. There is no one right way. But there are experts, or there are experts in training, and it's you guys. It's you guys with your own child. You were given your children to raise. So this is what's going on in our culture. Couldn't find a great chart for just happiness and stress in general, but parents are widely known to be more stressed, depressed, and anxious than any other culture before us. This is an actual marital happiness. It kind of just cracked me up because it's like, oh, they're married and they're so happy. And then they have little kids and they hate each other. And then kids get a little older and they're a little more self-sufficient and they start liking each other again because kids kind of like them and they all do stuff as a family. It's really nice. And then they have teenagers and they're like, oh, I can't curse in church, right? Sorry. Then you have, I keep wanting to. Then you have teenagers and you're like, stuff hits the fan, and then you kind of hate each other again, and then it goes up, right? So this is what goes on. I don't think it has to be this way. I just don't believe it has to be this way. I've seen time and again that it does not have to be this way. But I think it's important, so while I'm not a parenting expert, per se, just hating the term, I think it is important that we do these kinds of things. And I think it is important that we talk about it because we've kind of dug ourselves into a hole. Now, you guys are kind of coming after my generation of parents, and no one's getting out of the hole. We're just sort of digging in deeper because we kind of, we just keep doing the same thing. So I say there's no martyr like a maternal martyr, right? We're all martyrs, moms, right? So if we were doing all of this, if for 18 to 27 years to more, we were stressed and depressed and anxious and overwrought and overworked and not sleeping at night and, turning to medication to trying to get us through the day, which is fine to get through the day. If we were doing that and the kids were doing great, well, so be it, right? Like I said, I'm a mom first. I would give up anything. We'd all jump in front of a truck for our kids, and our moms probably, but for our kids. And, that would be fine. But how are the kids doing? The kids are doing terribly. They are more stressed, anxious, and depressed. It's just CDC stuff. You can look it up. But the studies are there. The facts are there. Anecdotally, I can see it. I see the difference between Madeline, who's 19, and I'm still very much her parent, and Lorelai, who's 15. I see even the change in the 4 years, the amount of friends who are struggling, really struggling. And it was not just because of COVID, it was before COVID too. So I raise this all not to be not to kind of be a downer. I raise it to say, let's stop. Let's just figure this out. Let's be better. Let's do better. Why would we give up so much of our life like this if there's no benefit for our children? So this is how I feel you're juggling, all the balls are in the air, you got the weight of the world on your shoulders kind of all the time. This is, the house that we're trying to build, and we're building it on Pinterest pictures and Facebook stories, and the house is getting built on like fear and what should I be doing, and stress and all that. And then COVID hits, right? So it was tough times already. And then COVID hits. So at the beginning, it was kind of fun. The boys were just talking about this. It was sort of fun, and then like after 2 days of virtual learning, it was not fun anymore. They want to go to school. So, you had that moment where it's like, oh, it's nice, and people were like, oh, it's so nice, we have dinner as a family, and we had, people had that for a little while. That's gone. It's been a year of loss, right? It's been a year of extreme suffering, loss of life, obviously, and, I want to be sensitive to that, and loss of income, but loss of socialization, and loss of freedom, and loss of kind of being human, right? I mean, even this, looking at you guys, like I just want to see your faces, loss of humanity, and that, yeah, we'll get it back slowly, but we still have to acknowledge that we've experienced those loss, even if we're the lucky ones, even if we're the ones who live in a great town and we haven't lost jobs and everything else. We've still experienced loss, and it's important to acknowledge that. Comparative suffering will get us nowhere. You can have your own loss and acknowledge that other people have it probably harder than you. Both things can coexist. So I know maternal guilt. I know it well. I live it and breathe it, and I have to always talk myself out of it. Don't pile guilt that you're doing okay onto the feeling that you're already having, that like, I want my life back, I want my children's life back. And so many people, even to the kids, are like, oh, people fought in wars, and times have been harder. And listen, I had a baby right before 9/11. I lived 2 blocks from the World Trade Center, ran out with her, with the buildings falling. This is harder. This is different. This is harder. So these are hard times, and you have to acknowledge your own suffering. So I guess here's another time I'd love you guys to just chime in if you can. So now with COVID, what are we worried about?
Children are holding on to their feelings of anxiety and not knowing how to address them and bring them out.
Yeah, so like fear and anxiety and mental illness, even in our youngest children, right? That's that's terrifying, really. And yeah, you can't pretend it's not happening, but at the same time, how much can they handle? Lisa, you were going to say something.
Like worried about, I don't know if this is the same topic, but like my son today said to me, like, oh, I'm so excited that you're going back to school every day, you get to see your friends every day. And he's like, no, because I'm going to miss my mom. I'd rather be home with you. So I think it's like the separation is getting harder, things that I'm just using him as the example, obviously, because he's my child. It's hard for him to let go.
Mm-hmm.
If this was last year, he'd be like running, like, I don't want to be home with you, I want to be with my friend.
Right. So when it's kids who are doing better, and we see this at every age of children, we see this in high school, kind of in a devastating sort of a way, that kids that were finally doing better who had social phobias and anxiety, not that your son does, but I'm just saying people who, those kids, I had one of the ones who I had to kick in the door, and by Charlie and Shane, I did just kick them in the door. Maddie cried every day in preschool in the city, and I would leave crying hysterically that she was crying. Charlie and Shane were like, Mommy, I want you to stay. I was like, oh my God, what's wrong with you? Go to school. I literally run away. Oh. So God, the gift of perspective. If I could give anyone something at a baby shower, it would be perspective. You just wish you could package that. But how old is your son?
He's 6, he'll be 7 next month.
Yeah, so, and that's a little older too, so that's you're saying he should be past that separation, right? So we're kind of these...
I don't have time with that.
Yep.
It was passing, it was great, and then COVID hit, and now it's
Yep.
now I'm feeling it, we're hitting that point again.
And you wonder how much of that is habit, right? Getting used to being home. And our world is scarier, right? They pick up, kids are smart. They know, they see it, they know this is, scary. These are the things that I'm worried about. I just, or that I, hear that people are worried about. I'm worried about the kids at the computer screens. They're showing that these kids that spend a lot of time on their phone are developing an extra bone kind of here that you used to only see in, men who worked at a desk job, and when they retired at 65, they would grow that bone. We're seeing it teenagers. It's tough. I worry about the physical. I worry about Kids are losing their peripheral vision because they're staring at a screen so long. Now, I don't know, maybe they won't need their peripheral vision anymore, because we'll always be staring at a screen. But these are the things that I worry about. I worry about the academics. I know your guys are little, but 6 and 7 is not so little anymore, right? Like, what are they missing? And I had the elementary school principal say to me, whatever, it doesn't matter, I called her and I was like, oh, how is this gonna go? And she's like, well, everybody will be missing it. I'm like, but I wasn't competing. I actually don't want them to miss it, it wasn't. But depression, anxiety, addiction, tech addiction, drug addiction in our older kids, addiction to just being home. And then, of course, I know I'm truthfully, and I just want to say this and put it out there, I'm actually not worried about my children getting sick from COVID. I'm not. I don't want them to spread it to anybody else. I'm very respectful of that, but I actually am not worried at all for my children. But I know a lot of people are, and I know a lot of the little kids are, possibly missing these milestones that they need to get. So there's a lot to be worried about. This is, this is from, a website, the American Psychological Association, just saying you're not alone. Like, the whole world, every parent in America is worried about the stuff that we're all worried about. But here's the good news. And this has been shown in study after study, time and time again, that 85% of the things we worry about never happen. And then I can't remember the exact number, but it's like another 7 or 8, I don't know if anyone has read the study and can correct me, it's like 7 or 8% of the 15, when it does happen, it wasn't nearly as bad as they thought it was gonna be. So we spend a whole lot of time, it's like worry's like a rocking chair, right? You're moving constantly, but you're getting nowhere. And we spend a whole lot of time doing that. So this is stress by generation. You guys are probably millennials. I'm an Xer. All of my kids are Gen Z. Maybe all of your kids are, most of your kids or some of your kids are Gen, they don't really have a name for it yet. They're throwing some stuff out there, maybe Gen V for virtual, but, I know, I hate that. The line, I kind of put that line in myself. I'm just trying to say, gosh, if we continue like this, crud muffins, right? I can say that? Okay. So then I say, okay, so we're so worried, we have this thing to worry about now, right? And I was saying this to Lisa before I walked in. We were worried before because it's in our nature to worry. And then we got a reason to worry. So we were able to put all our worry on that thing. Our worry had a name, because sometimes you don't even know what you worried about as a mom, right? And so then our worry had a name. But I'm fascinated by evolutionary psychology. I'm fascinated by it. So, whenever people became people and they were moms and they were protecting their children, they, were worried about, and I'm sure they looked just like Wilma, they were worried about famine and death and lions, man-eating lions, are there any other kinds? Poisonous plants, warring tribes, they were worried about these big things that were literally a threat to that child's life at every single moment. And because of that, because the species needed to survive, the worry neurotransmitters kick in so hard and are just so much stronger than the joy neurotransmitters, than the happy neurotransmitters. They just overwhelm them, right? And it's okay because there was a reason for it, because we needed to survive. But we haven't been able, and this is what we all need to work on, to say, they're going to survive, and I told you they're gonna be fine. They're gonna survive and they're gonna be fine, so can I just slow down the worrying? Can I just stop it? Because can I just acknowledge that it comes from an amazing place? It comes from maternal instinct that kept these little cave babies alive, and that was a good thing. But we still have it deep within our brains. Our brains, the core of our brains, they call it the most basic part of the brain that is still the way it was back then, still has that, and it is still causing us to worry and worry. But now instead of famine, we worry about lack. Do they have enough? Am I enough? Are their enrichment activities enough? Are they getting what everyone else is getting? Instead of death, we obsess about their safety. We obsess about electric outlets and falls and skin knees, and there's a whole business just preying on those fears, that we have to keep them safe and unharmed at all times. Now, it's not the lions, it's the friends, especially when they get into middle school. It's like those, mean girls. And it's not poisonous plants, but it's GMO and organic versus non-organic and pesticides. And, and it's not warring tribes, it's competition. It's the competition on the field and in the classroom and who's going to outperform them. And then it's not, they were about survival of the species, and now we kind of put that as like survival. Will my child be able to survive? And in order to do that, they have to get into the best college. So it comes from a great place. And when we forgive ourselves for it and just sort of acknowledge that it comes from a beautiful place, a place where we just want our child to be, but we've kind of warped it. Like we're sort of doing, like we have just as much concern over things that I think when we kind of look at it like that, we could all agree are like not as big of a deal as a man-eating lion, but we're like back up the way they were back up when, the life was threatened. So, you guys know this quote, insanity, doing the same thing over and over again and expecting different results. Einstein was pretty smart. He said that. I believe him. So how do we break this cycle? I don't know if you guys could read that. It's two women sitting at a bar, and there's a man sitting next to them, and she says, I don't know, just call it women's intuition. And she's basically saying, like, I think he might be a snake. And he's a snake. And, she's listening to her gut. And women especially, and if there's any dads listening at home, you guys are awesome too. But if women especially have intuition, we have a gut, and we have stopped listening to it. We've tuned it out. There's so much information. Here I am giving you more information. I realize that there's an irony here because I'm up here talking, like doing a parenting lecture, giving you more information when what I'm telling you is listen to your gut. Your gut knows because your gut always wants what's best for your child because nobody loves your child more than you love your child. You always want what's right, and you know it deep down. You know everything I'm telling you. You guys, know all this, but it's always nice to hear it again. So the noise, right? The other parents, the judgment from the other parents, gosh, the social media, I won't belabor that. All the parenting books, all of the information, all of that. The problem with all of those things is it's very general. And I have to be very general tonight too, but it's very general. But you have your child in front of you to raise, and that's specific. And that's what you need to be mindful about when you're parenting, trying to tune out the noise. Because I promise you, you guys are amazing parents, and you already know what needs to be done. So as much as I said, I don't have the answer for you. I do, after all these years of parenting and thinking about parenting, and I really do believe I was a happier mom with Charlie and Shane. So Maddie, Serena, Lorelai kind of came boom, boom, boom. Maddie was 3, Serena was 2, Lorelai was a baby. She was colic, she was awful. I wanted to give her away. If she was my first, she would have been my last. I was schlepping around the city with the baby Bjorn, the skateboard, the stroller, whatever. And I was probably not that happy. And it was a lot of my life. And then things got better, and then I found out I was pregnant with twins. And Larry and I left that sonogram and literally, in a movie, both went to work, didn't even talk to each other, and left. And only it was 12 hours later, no joke. And even then I was I don't think I can talk about it yet. But then we had Charlie and Shane, and we decided when I was pregnant we were gonna enjoy it. I feel life is too short. We can't start this all over again and be stressed. We're gonna enjoy it. So I feel I have learned, I have this gift of perspective for my 2 families. We call them our grandchildren. And I have this one family and this other family, and I kind of can do it better now. So I have learned some things, and this is all things to be, right? And you guys are probably Jesus. The hats, this woman, I like this cartoon, she's wearing so many hats, she tips over, And that's every mom, right? You're wearing a million hats all the time. You're trying to be everything to everybody. So you're I don't want to be more things. But I promise you, if you can focus, and there's more, these are just the ones that I wanted to emphasize, but if you could be those things, or try, or work toward being those things, I promise you can take off some of these hats. These hats are heavy. You can take these off. And they are to be authentic, to be curious, to be patient, to be present, and to be respect. And that's not a typo. I actually, I'll get to it. And I also realized that I could have changed the letters so that it spells, but I didn't want to do that because that is actually a good thing. I want people to do this. And I also didn't want to change the words to try to make a cute word. So there's no way to remember that other than, just to remember it. So being authentic. You are the mother your child deserves. You are his or her mother. I remember being in the city, having Maddie. I had this friend who was fabulous. She actually used to be a supermodel. She had, hooked up with one of the Cuomos, the cute one. Who's the cute one, Chris? She was just fabulous. And she had it all together, I thought, right? She always had a bag with healthy snacks. And I grew up in Queens with very lower middle class family. We didn't have healthy snacks. We had Doritos. So I didn't even know. I was like, oh my God. And here I was a doctor, but we didn't take nutrition in medical school. But I was always like looking up to her. But then when I was around her and our kids were around, I'd get so uncomfortable. Like I hated the way she parented. Now her kids were so happy. And that was authentic to her. And I found myself like kind of trying to maybe do that. But then it felt so wrong. Like it didn't feel like me at all, And so then I, just realized then, like, I'm her mom. I have to parent the way that feels good for me. You're the parent that your child needs. You're the mom that your child needs. You're the mom that he or she deserves. I promise you that you are 100% absolutely enough. On your worst day, you are enough. Children love their parents, and children have a BS radar like no one else. They'll know when you're not being authentic. And what do I mean by this? You hear things, or you see another mother, like my friend Amy, taking her kids to the Museum of Natural History, and I'm like, oh, do I take Charlie and Train to the Museum of Natural History? I really don't want to. So I'm not going to. We do lots of things together. We have lots of fun together. We love playing card games. I love games. Like, we love playing card games. Shane just taught me how to do a Rubik's Cube. Like, we do things like that together, and that is authentic to me. So I enjoy it. When I forced myself to sit on a floor and play make-believe, I was really bad at make-believe. I didn't want to pretend I was somebody else, and I would do it, but it felt like not normal or natural, but I thought that's what I was supposed to be doing. I was miserable. And I could tell my child wasn't really enjoying themselves. I love reading books. We would read books together. They can make believe on their own. Do the things. Spending time with little kids especially feels like work when you're not doing the things that you enjoy, when you're doing the things that you think you should be doing. Do the things that you enjoy. Bring them into your life. Let them see that you are a person separate from them, and bring them into your life. They will love that. They will love that even more. They get just as much joy out of going to the grocery store with you as they do, some enrichment activity, if that's not your thing. If it's your thing, do it. But don't do just what somebody else is doing, and don't do it just because you think you should. Be you. The kids, the teenagers say that, you do you. But they're right. You do you, and your child will be happier, and you will be happier, and the time you spend together will be so much more valuable. Being curious, you have this baby, right? And they put it in your hands, and it's like an actual real human being. And that's wild, right? Because you kind of expect this lump of clay that you can sort of mold into whatever you want it to be. That's not what you get. You get a human being. Yes, there's nature involved. There's nurture involved. This is a child separate from you, who has his or her own purpose in the world, something that he or she needs to fulfill, who's going to live the life, the journey that they want. And it will be so much easier to parent that child. I swear to you, it would be so much easier, because I made the mistake of, in my early years, not doing this enough. It'll be easier when you know them. So get curious. What does that look like? Ask them questions, a lot. Ask them questions. Start with I'm curious. Start with I wonder, so it doesn't sound like an accusation. Charlie, I wonder, I'm wondering why you wanted to play soccer this year. Do you like it? Maddie, I'm wondering, why you chose that major. It never ends. But with little kids, it's, what's a name? Give me one of your kids' names. James. Oh, I love the name James. James, oh wow, that's a great picture. I'm just wondering why you drew it that way. And then also, it's how you learn what is setting them off, or what are the behaviors that you don't like. You learn by getting curious. You don't learn by telling them how to change. You learn by getting curious. And when you get curious and you learn what is driving them, that's how you can affect as much change as you can. Now, you can only do so much. But you can affect a little bit of change, but you can affect it when it comes from a place of curiosity and wonder about this amazing human being in front of you. Not the person you want them to be, not the child you dreamed of having, but the actual one in front of you. I guarantee they're better than the one you dreamed of. You just have to let that dream go. So you get curious, you ask them, you get on eye level, and you do this in times of calm, right? So it's not like, Shane, I'm wondering why you're being such a little da-da-da-da right now kind of thing. It's later, hey, Shani, I'm wondering, what was that about yesterday? How are you feeling? You kind of seemed upset. What was that about? And you will learn so much, I promise you. And the kids are insightful about themselves if you let them be. And when they feel heard and seen and understood, it is so settling for them. In this time of stress and anxiety and everything else, it's so settling for them to really feel like somebody hears them and somebody sees them. What's the movie with the Avatar? You guys seen Avatar, that movie? It's a great movie. But they're like outer space creatures or whatever, and they have a phrase that means "I see you." And I always just thought that was such a beautiful thing, because it's like a greeting, but it's not just like, oh, hey, it's like, I see you. Like, I see you. Meaning, I acknowledge you. I acknowledge you as like separate from me. I acknowledge all the beauty in you. It says so much, and children will pick up on that. And then accepting your limitations. As parents, we all have this God complex, and it's not like the ego kind. It's not the kind that like famous movie stars have. It's the really damaging, scary kind for us. You can't write the script. You want to write the script. You can't write the script. You can help your child write the script for him or herself, but you can't write the script. So knowing that, let that go. You can't control it. Your child is going to be who they're going to be. And yes, you lead and you guide and all of that along the way, but you cannot change fundamentally who they are, nor should you want to. Okay. Being patient, and I don't mean like, I remember when I had little kids, I felt like all I said was, all right, let's go, let's go, let's go, let's go. Do you guys do that? Like, I'm always like, okay, let's go, let's go, let's go. And I don't do that anymore, so easier. But when I say being patient, and I'm sure you've heard this before, because this comes up at a lot of parenting things, but this is something that I really believe in. Nothing good can come of you reacting in a stressful moment to your child. You have to always be the adult in the room. Take that deep breath, do the box breathing, whatever it takes, turn your back, walk out of the room, whatever it takes, stop yourself from reacting in the moment. Because you will come back with you'll be more authentic, you'll be more compassionate, your child will pick up on that, and any interaction that you then have will be so much more fruitful, so much more beneficial. You get so much more out of it with your child. I mean, you can't, we can bring up temper tantrums. You've heard it, you can't teach a drowning person to swim. You just can't. There is so much value in silence, because I've often said the wrong thing and just been like, why did I say that? Whereas if I had just said nothing, if I just sat and said nothing, one, it often works itself out. Two, I think children appreciate when you can just sit with them in the pain or whatever it is they're having, and as mothers, we have a hard time just sitting with our child when they're in pain. We want to fix, we want to fix, we want to fix. But it's such a gift to just sit with somebody when they're in pain. So be patient with yourself. We're imperfect mothers, raising imperfect children. It's all perfectly wonderful. But be patient with yourself. Do breathing, do whatever it takes. Go, leave the room, do a shot of tequila, whatever it takes to just separate yourself from the situation long enough to remember why you love that kid so much, to acknowledge what they may be going through, and to come back a little bit of a better version of yourself. Truly you, just a little bit less reactive. My worst parenting moments have always been when I just like, boom, right away, always, every time. It's really rarely effective. And be present. This is, we talk about this all the time. I don't know if there's ever been a time as necessary, I'm jumbling words, but like as needed as it is now to be present in the moment, because there's so much uncertainty and there's so much fear, and our kids are feeling that uncertainty and that fear from us. They are. And if you can just be present with them, this goes back to just letting them be seen, staying in that moment. It matters now, it matters always. I promise you, you will never have time to look at all the pictures you take. You will never have time to look at all the video you take. I hope that you never have time to look at all those pictures and video, because you want a life where your kids and your grandchildren and your family is still a part of your life and you're still looking at them. You don't want to be this little old lady sitting there going back and being like, oh, they all left me kind of thing. You want to just be in that moment, because I've never looked back on a great moment, a funny moment, and been like, oh, where's that picture of that? And I know everybody says that, and I don't mean don't record the Christmas show. Record the Christmas show, because those are good videos. But the big moments, I get it, that you want to show grandparents and everything, but really just try to put your camera down. We got to try to post less. We have to stop looking at a moment with our child and think how it's going to look on camera, or thinking how it's going to look on social media, or thinking who we can share this moment with. Parents used to not do that. They didn't have the technology to do that, and they were happier. But we so rarely live in this moment because our phone is constantly distracting. I mean, I guarantee you guys have all been great not looking at your phones, and I appreciate it. But I'm sure when you check your phone, you're going to have like 20 texts, like 18 group texts from your college group chat and your high school group chat, and then you're going to have, your husband's going to be like, where are you, whatever, someone's doing something. But we're sitting here, and we're together, and we're in this moment, and there's just so much value to it. Even if it's 5 minutes, I promise you, and we obsess, like our culture obsesses over, like working mothers spend more time with their children than ever before, and they spend all these hours with their children. And it probably is, a lot of it is forced. It's like scheduled time that you feel like you have to do it. I promise you that 5 minutes sitting, listening, talking, even if it's like while you're cooking, just let them cook with you, whatever it may be, even though I know that's kind of like a pain in the neck to let them help you because it just never is helpful at all, but it'll pay off in the long run. Like Shane's 11 and he actually cooked dinner last night. He made meatloaf, it was delicious. But he can do that because we did that together because I like to cook, so it's something that we could do together. But that 5 minutes will be better than an hour of you like on your phone, checking email, honey, like while you're talking to them. And by the way, I'm guilty of it too. We all are. But make that time for that 5 minutes, put the phone down. It's a good suggestion to check emails like later at night after the kids go to bed. It's a good suggestion to leave the room. It's not always practical, I get it. But if they're talking to you, sit. And if you have more than one child, and my house is loud, you can imagine, and everyone's always talking, and it's a good little thing that I feel works for us. When everyone's trying to tell me something at once, I'll just say like, okay, Charlie, who talks the most, are you going to remember what you said? Because I do want to hear it. Like, are you going to remember it? Okay. Shane, finish what you were saying. Like, let me just hear what Shane's going to say. Like, it's good just to acknowledge it, just to not say like, all right, everybody, I can't hear. Just like pick them out and be like, okay, if you could just be patient and wait, it's a great lesson in patience. It's a great lesson in everything. And that's going to bring us to our last point, probably very, very well. Lead by example. You're going to want your kids to be able to stay in the moment too, right? You don't want them always distracted. It's a problem. Kids have this problem today. And if they see you in the moment, they will learn. Everything they learn is by example, which is a pain in the neck, because then you feel like you always have to be like kind of on in front of them, and you don't, but you do always have to be mindful of the message that you're sending with your actions. And finally, respect. So I had a friend, she's actually the editor for the Audible, and she'd said to me when we were discussing the Audible, if you could say one thing, like one thing that like your house has, that you're so grateful that it has, that made the difference, you could forget everything else we talked about. This is it. You have to respect yourself enough to not feel guilty, to not feel like you're not enough. You have to respect yourself to know that you were given the child that you deserve. You're the mother that your child deserves. You have to respect yourself at all times and expect respect from your children. The way you do that, the way you get that respect, it's kind of easy. Respect them. I feel like as a culture, we are expecting so much more of our children, and we're constantly telling them they can't do anything. We're constantly doing for them. We're constantly getting in their space. I'm guilty of this too. It's like when you see your child really happy, you want to get involved because they're happy. You want to make like a happy child happier. Like they're so happy. Respect their space. Leave them alone. When they become teenagers, respect their space. And that's a long way off from probably some of you, but expect respect from your partner. Be respectful to each other. Always, if everyone has a partner in the room, just be respectful to people in stores. You can vent and complain and do all of that when the kids are in bed or when you're by yourself. Don't do it in front of them. Let them see that you respect other humans. They will respect you. So again, I do not have this all figured out. My kids, I still have a lot of time to go. I have a lot of time to grow. They have a lot of time to grow. The thing I have learned, never say never as a mother. Never look at somebody else and be like, that would never be me. My kids are like shotgunning, White Claws at a bar. I'm sure when she was 3, I'd be like, what kind of a mother would let? I'm actually really just looking for a drinking partner. But so never, ever, never say never. But I totally lost my train of thought. We were talking about alcohol. Anyway, the point is, exemplify respect, respect them, respect, you got curious, you figured out who they are, now respect it, don't try to change it. And you will all live in such a happier place. Oh, I know what I was gonna say. my teenage daughters don't disrespect me. They've never, not once. It's just never happened. Now, other things have happened, and I have to, get involved. But I know it's because this mattered to me early, and I know it's because I tried to respect. I can tell you confidently that the focus that I put on respect early on and not taking any stuff from them is what makes our house so happy. Like I said to Lorelai, she was like, what are you going to talk about? I'm like, oh, I don't know. I was like, what do you think? I was like, I don't know. I feel like in our house, everyone just respects each other. I want that to be a point. She's like, we do. I was like, you guys are never mean to me. She's like, I know, but you're never mean to us. I'm like, I know. And that's a nice way to be. And you can get there. Don't buy into this whole, like, girls are so, there's no difference in girls and boys. Girls agree, boys agree. They all have their challenges. They're all wonderful and amazing. And thank God they're all different. It would be so boring if they were all the same, right? Okay, so I know there were a couple of questions. I have no idea what time it is. I just like, 7:50? Oh, that was pretty good. Okay. I do want to address the COVID thing. What I want to say is everything that we talked about is like lifelong stuff. It's just like this overview of stuff. It's more important now than ever to just be conscious of it because we are so worried, Lisa. I mean, right? That's like when your 7-year-old says that to you, like, he's like, I love you too, buddy, but like, I want you to be in the world. That's scary stuff. Like, so being mindful and being intentional in our parenting is probably more important now than it's ever been before because our children are potentially, not all kids, some kids are probably doing great. You can't paint everyone with the same brush, but a lot of them are probably suffering on the inside. A lot of them are probably really picking up this fear and this anxiety. So I would say in the time of COVID, hug more. I mean, I'm a hugger. I think I was an Italian grandmother in a previous life. I drive them crazy. And if you're gonna hug for 20 seconds, because at least 20 seconds, you get the happy hormones, and they all flood in, and it actually, study after study shows that hugging is actually such a mood booster. So don't let them go, just hug. Somebody once told me, like, never be the first to break a hug with your child. And I love that. I was like, oh my gosh, that's amazing. I will never be the first to break a hug with my child. My daughter Serena, who's 18, would stand there and hug you forever that I have had to say, like, all right, get off me now. Like, she just loves hugging so much. So again, the things, I'm like, that's beautiful. I'm going to live that. The other one that I always thought I would live is, you're only as happy as your least happy child. I kid you not, about 3 years ago, I was like, I can't do that. There's 5 of them. They're not all going to be happy at the same time. I am going to live these 27 years depending on their happiness, like, so to feel good about myself. And I was like, you know what, from now on, I'm going to be as happy as my happiest child. And I said it out loud, and I said it to my husband, and it worked. I swear to you, it worked. Be as happy as your happiest child, and be there to support your least happy child. Anyway, hug more, listen more. Self-care always matters. I know we hear it all the time. Self-care is not selfish. I just want to reiterate that. You guys deserve to get away and get some time, and more than this. You guys all should have brought wine. They have wine in church, right? I mean, we should have brought wine. Breathing is important. Of course, mask emotion. Do your best not to talk about this stuff in front of your kids. Just try. Answer their questions, but I don't even think you have to ask them if they have questions. If you feel like they're a little off, ask them what's bothering them. You don't have to ask them if they have any questions about COVID. When you're curious and you go into a conversation, don't ask leading questions. Ask open questions. See, because it might surprise you. They might be upset and you're thinking they're afraid or it has something to do, and they could be like, so-and-so broke my truck and the thing. Like, you don't know what they're going to say. Ask open-ended questions. But as hard as it is, and I will say this will serve you so well through your whole life, because there's a million times you want to talk about one of their friends because you're a mama there. You want to talk about their friends, the coaches, teachers. You want to blame somebody. You want to do all that. Try to get in the habit of waiting till they go to bed or they're not in the room. It just never helps to sort of sink to that level for them to see you sort of blaming somebody else. It also destroys accountability for them to receive accountability. You can do it. I mean, I do it. You can do it. Just don't do it in front of them, And that's a whole nother empathy we can talk about. But okay, and focus on the facts. Please focus on the facts. There's so much fear-mongering out there. This is so much of this. It is a horrible, horrible virus. It has done so much damage. We're making it worse with the fear. Know the facts. Understand what the real risk is. Really, spend the time to read the CDC website and to really understand and try to turn off the news, because the news is not giving you facts. It's just not what they're doing. I haven't turned on CNN, which I usually watch. I haven't turned it on once that it doesn't say experts warn of a surge in cases as the bottom line. I'm like, oh gosh, okay, it's just the fear, and for me, it's not I had it, my husband had it, two of my daughters had it. We're not worried about that. I want them to get back to school. So when I see that stuff, it just kind of sets me off, and so you have to just work on fear. And again, this has been a terrible year for all of us. For your children, it's been terrible. What they're missing, little children wearing masks, they're also amazing that they can do it. I never thought they'd be able to do it, but kids are so cool that they can do it. I'm thinking about what my daughter Madeline in college is missing. She's like locked away. My daughter Serena is a senior. I don't know if she'll have prom. I'm thinking about all these things. And these are terrible things. And I talk to them about these things, and actually they are less concerned about them than I am. I'm sort of projecting on top of them, so I've tried to back off from that. But the big thing that you can't do, it's a virus. You cannot accept responsibility for this year and what it's done. You can feel bad for what it's done to your children, but we feel like we can control everything. It's not your fault. This has been a terrible year, and we're going to come out of it. And whatever you have to do at the other end, however you have to help your child, whatever it is, you didn't cause the problem in the first place. There was nothing that you could have done differently. So don't accept responsibility. Guilt will get you nowhere. And then that's kind of it. I kind of remember the couple questions that I got, but anyone have any questions? Or I know it's very general. It's kind of nicer when you're sort of coaching somebody because you can really talk about that one child, right? Because I'm saying parenting is so individual. It's so hard to make blanket statements, but I do believe in the ones I threw out there.
Some of the questions that I've had as I'm giving tours to a lot of families with children who are going to attend the 2.5 through 3, this is their first real experience at school, is they're concerned about socialization. They're concerned not that their children will be shy, they're concerned their children will be aggressive.
Mm-hmm.
Mm-hmm. Oh my gosh, how are these kids going to get out of the car? They haven't seen anyone since March. And they were so happy to see other kids.
Yeah.
That it was just so, there was so much joy, there was so much happiness. We didn't have any tears or any.
So it's so poignant what you just said. So Melissa's question isn't really a question, it's a question that she's gotten from a bunch of mothers saying, gosh, my child hasn't socialized before this, now they're going into preschool for the first time. Will they be acting out, basically? Do you think there'll be behavioral issues? And they might be asking, so they don't look like crazy people, they might be asking a little worried about how the other kids are gonna be too, right? Which is understandable if that's a fear of yours. And then Melissa's saying they had camp and kids got out of the car so happy for camp, And there's a reason for that. We put so much pressure on that going back to school thing. We take pictures and there's signs first day of school and your first day of school outfit, and we talk about it, and they get on the phone with their grandparents and everyone, is all excited for them to start school. I've done it. If you could avoid doing that, if you can just let school you tell them that they're going to school and everything, but if you just can sort of tone down the level of excitement, because excitement and anxiety are very, very linked. They feel the same inside. And it's you try to take away anxiety by saying, I'm excited about this, I'm not anxious about this. But the opposite can also be true. You could be like, you're excited, and you put that on them. And then that becomes a lot, right? That becomes a lot. And that's why I think you didn't see problems at camp, because camp was just camp. It didn't have that big grown-up feeling. It was just hey, you're gonna go play with a bunch of kids. If you can that's your concern for your child. I don't think you have to have that concern generally. If you have a child who you think is lashing out, of course, that's different. But kids love other kids. Kids are drawn to other children. And there's always an adjustment period, whether they started at 2.5, whether they started at 3.5, that's always been. And probably at home, they don't, the parents aren't letting them hit and everything, so they're teaching them proper behaviors. But you have to also kind of just count on the staff and the teachers to do the right thing and to redirect them if that happens. But I would say lowering the expectations for it, just not talking about, I found pretty much with everything that the less I talk about it, the easier the transition is for my child. We think we're doing a good thing by getting them all excited, but when the truth is we're really just getting them anxious. And then they, in fact, might lash out. Charlie punched somebody. Do you remember that? None of my kids had ever, and Charlie, I got the phone call. I was like, what is happening? Like, what am I doing wrong? I'm horrible. And it was awful. And then whatever, he never hit again. I mean, it happens, you know. It won't be the end of the world if that does happen, and they will learn to adjust. But I don't think it will. Kids are naturally in tune to want to be with other kids. They're not going to see other kids and being like, what is that? They just won't. I think they'll be fine. I do. I understand the concern, but I think they'll be fine. And my only recommendation to try to avoid something like that is what I said, just, you know, temper it a little bit. And then there was another question. Oh, I actually really love this question. Somebody asked, do you have any like suggestions or advice for a child who always has to be right? Okay, so I had one of those, and she's still exactly the same. Okay, so I would call Larry, because we would fight over clothing. It was like a year and a half. It's Serena. It's my second. Second tend to be a little bit more like that. I don't know if the parent who asked, this is their second child. I don't know if it's a boy or a girl. Was it you? Okay, so what? So I love, by the way, I love these kids. What is...
This is my 7-year-old, and it's more so I'm now teaching him sometimes.
Mm-hmm. Oh.
Like I can't, the math problem has to be, there is a right answer to the math problem. And then also, you know, socially also, I don't want to always be trying to telling him he's wrong or needs to adjust things.
Right.
But I also want to help him where he needs to be helped.
Mm-hmm.
Some of it is more black and white, and then some of it, a lot of the socializations, that isn't happening as much. And I want to be able to guide him,
Yeah.
but not make him feel like I'm telling him he's wrong. Because there is so much more guidance this year coming from me that would usually come from other sources.
And I'd be willing to bet almost anything that he wouldn't have that kind of need to be right if it was a teacher.
Yeah.
Right? He's challenging you because he's kind of bummed that you're teaching it to him, right? Understandably, you're bummed that you're teaching it to him. Who wants to do this, right? You don't sign up for this. But my kids loved babysitters too. Larry and I would go out and they were like, no, I mean, I feel like that's so normal. I hate helping my kids still with stuff like that, like with work, because when they do that and they're like, no, you know, and then you're kind of like, fine, do it yourself. Like, this is kind of what you want to react. Is he like that in other circumstances? Like, is he?
No, it's just more,
it's more with the math.
it's actually, no, it's just sad. Like, even socially, about like, some people don't like to wrestle, you know?
Yeah.
Try not to wrestle, you just get sad if you did something that was wrong. So it's coming from a place of like a good heart.
Right.
How do you help them? How do you help
Yeah. So, and again, it's always fun because, and I hope this is okay with you, if I have your permission just to tell you my own story here. As a doctor, you never do that, right? Like, patient doesn't walk in and is like, I have this splitting headache. You're like, "Geez, me too." You know, you don't do that. But when you're doing this kind of thing, I could be like, me too. I had that child. Her name is Serena. She is now my favorite person in the world to be with. So just to start, I want to say, is the thing that will drive you most crazy about your child that will be inextricably linked to the thing that you love the most about your child. And you cannot separate the two. And I could do it for each and every one of my kids across the board. I could be like, that's the thing that if I could just change, you know, if I could just change this about him. And then you're like, but God, what would I lose? You know, she's always been the one who was confident and and it was probably because she didn't want to be wrong too, but she just is tough. I don't worry about her. She's decisive. Like, you know, she just picked her college. She's not looking back. Like, she was my most challenging child, for sure. She's become my easiest child to raise. So just take a deep breath on that, because that can happen. Also, it's his personality, right? So it's manifesting in these ways that you guys are now interacting with, but it's also part of his personality. And it's hard to be like, you have to change this thing about you. So one, I would say, kind of pick your battles. When is it really important to be right? Two, I would say there's no winner and loser, right? Like, if you guys are at odds, everyone's a loser, even if he's right or you're right. It doesn't matter. There's no winner or loser in these fights with our children, right? Or these discussions with our children. You're trying to get to the point where everyone wins. When he is right, I would probably, he's a guy, right? They need a lot of, if Larry washes the dishes, like, I wash the dishes. I'm like, I see that, thank you. Boys tend to need, I see my little guys too, boys tend to need a little bit more affirmation. So when he is right about something, throw him a compliment so that the next time that you're like, oh, I don't think that this is correct, he doesn't feel, he's built up enough of the good stuff. He's built up enough times where you're like, is this James? Was this the James? Ben? Great. Exactly. So, and how old is he? Yeah, and it's, it's a control thing, right? And it might be coming out more now, and I don't want to hypothesize and make it like more psychological than it has to be. It might be coming out more now because there is so much uncertainty, right? So when they want to like hold on to that thing that is making them certain, or it might just be who they are. So when they are right or when they do something good, especially because they're boys, I would say focus on it a little bit, like really just give them that little bit of extra, like, oh, wow, like that's great, that's correct for sure, like you are right. And you build up enough of that, and it kind of softens the blow. It's like a technique you do with people who have depression and anxiety too. Like you kind of build up enough good stuff and put it in your pockets so that when like something that you don't like comes along, you kind of can balance it out with the bad stuff. Other than that, I would say, it's going to get better. No, but I promise you that it'll manifest itself in ways that you did not expect and in ways that you really admire about them. It will. It's a challenge now for sure, but.
I used to hate that my eldest was so stubborn, but now that I see the drive and ambition that has provided her, she's tenacious and I love it.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, exactly. Melissa's saying, just because if anyone's listening, like she used to hate that her oldest was so stubborn, but now she sees like the good in that, like the tenacity and the drive, and all of that is so amazing. But it's hard. I mean, believe me, I used to call Larry and be like, you should come home now because I'm going to kill her. Like I might kill her, and if you love her, you should come home now and save, But I also learned with Serena to let the things go that didn't matter, right? So we used to battle over tights. She did ballet, okay? She was like not built like a ballerina. She was never going to be a ballerina. I can't like even keep a rhythm. Neither can Larry. Like this is just because all the other little girls were doing ballet. I felt like she should do ballet. We like battled over it, and she, not every time, but enough that one day I said, Serena, keep fighting me on this, and you will not go to ballet anymore. And she was like, okay. I was like, oh wait, she doesn't have to go to ballet. We quit ballet. She's playing soccer in college. She would never have been a ballerina. She's like built like a soccer player. Like it would have never worked out for her anyway. I just realized I could tell she didn't like it. Like we were sometimes I feel like we push the things, and that's not what you're talking about with homework, I know that, but we push these things because we think they should be doing them when it would be just so important. And not to substitute it with something else. You don't have to be like, well, if you're not going to do dance, then you have to do something else. Just pull back and give them some time to figure out, what they do want. I would say let them be right once in a while, and I would also say let them be wrong once in a while. The teacher will mark it wrong. We don't want them to hand in papers, but I've gotten very comfortable with the boys, like the virtual learning. I go to scan their tests in, and I see missing questions, and it's all I can do not to be like, Charlie, come fill this in. But I don't. I scan it in because I'm like, the only way they're going to learn is if somebody tells them they're wrong, and hopefully the teacher will tell them they're wrong, and hopefully they can get back to school. I think that's the end of my slideshow. Does anybody have anything else? This has been fun. It's nice to see faces. And it's about 8 o'clock, right?
It is about 8 o'clock.
All right. Well, this has been really nice. Thank you so much, everybody. It's been lovely. Check out my Audible. I have to get comfortable marketing the stuff, It's like 2.5 hours long. I haven't recorded it yet. I'm doing that on Monday. But it'll be out for Mother's Day. Treat yourself. I do a lot of your kids are going to be fine. Thanks, everybody.